The general manager is here, Jim Pop. Jim. All right.
Great Keith.
Anything you'd like to say to the folks here tonight? You have any news you might want to break?
Argo. We appreciate, first of all, thank you for coming out tonight. We've got a great event with our commissioner and with you season ticket holders. It's not possible. None of us would be here if it wasn't for you. And believe us, we don't forget that every day we come to work. So just understand that. So it's a very, very important aspect of what we do to come out here and be with you. Anytime we have a chance to, and to touch you, and for you to touch us, and to have great conversations. And so we appreciate it very much. I do have a special announcement on behalf of the Argonauts here. We go through, year after year, as season ticket holders, you hold your breath. Which player is going to resign, be back with the team. And believe me, it's not an easy process, especially in this day and time. With free agency era the way it is, with salary cap, it takes a special bond. It takes a special individual for a player to want to maintain and stay in a place for a long period of time or make it their home. To have that trust factor, I think we all understand trust. Trust you earn and you deserve by earning it, and when you have it, we want that in the workplace. And when you create that special bond with an individual that you trust, then usually you have great success with them. So what's special about this evening, having this event, we have an individual like on this sign right here. Where's he at? We haven't got him re-signed yet. So, I look over here, who would he have? Well, he re-signed, right?
Yeah.
And then, this guy right here, 12 years, where is he? I don't understand it. Oh, here he is. Come on up. This is starting the 12th year we've been together. And
Get a room.
and the crazy thing is, this gentleman right here, you're talking about a guy that's endured a lot to make it where he has, and be where he is, and the thing is that one day this guy, I don't have any doubts, will be a Hall of Famer. An all-time great.
He isn't already?
He's been through, this is a guy that we went to a trial camp. He had a great college career. We had a trial camp. He shows up, South Florida, that's where he went, University of South Florida. And we go out there. He puts on a show, and I'm like, who is this guy? And so I go straight into the football office with the strength coaches. I start asking questions. Well, SJ, you're talking about a gentleman who got married at a young age in college with his wife, has a couple beautiful children, and he spent 2.5 years on the practice roster, waiting his chance. And once he got his chance, he's never, ever looked back. And you see the career he's had, but that's what makes him special. He understands it. Hopefully one day he'll be in this business. I think he's got it all. He's a very intelligent man, but we're very lucky to have him here with the Toronto Argonauts. Congratulations.
This is humbling. It really is. To have this type of support and reaction to me coming back to this organization is amazing. This is a beautiful time, a beautiful city, a beautiful organization, a beautiful fans to have support this team in this city, and I'm just happy and blessed to be a part of it all. I just want to say thank you to you all, and let's repeat.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get to the main crux of the evening. That's a nice little bonus, isn't it?
Yeah.
The best, well, as great as he was in Montreal, the best season of his career was this year in Toronto.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to call these two together again. That's awesome. start this with the second overall pick in the 1985 CFL draft. The Calgary Stampeders are proud to select from the University of Manitoba Bisons guard Randy Ambrosie, who is here right now. Second overall, a tackle I understand, a center maybe. Come on, a guard second overall?
Well, I was actually a tackle in college.
Okay.
And in fact, I was a tackle my rookie season in the CFL, and I was 253 pounds. And I played against, if you remember, James Quick Parker, line, and Nick Hebler, and I could actually hearing them licking their lips when I lined up against them the very first time, and I gave up 5 sacks against Quick Parker. So it was a well-deserved beatdown on
James Clicker.
on my part, and then of course you learn and you try to get better.
Absolutely. You come to Toronto, still a couple of years with the Argos, great running game. Gil Fennerty, you get to a great cup. The next year you get released from final. What is your most lasting memory of playing with the Argos?
Well, honestly, I think SJ would agree. It's your teammates. It's always your teammates. Like time passes, and lots of things come and go. But at the end, the thing you remember the most are the guys you played with. So. Ian Beckstead was a center. Dan Fermi was the left guard. Dan and I continue to this day to be great friends. We spent a lot of time with Dan and his wife Barb in Oakville, and our families have known each other all these years. So it's the friendships, it's your teammates. That's the thing. That's the enduring memory.
And it's great. I mean, you had the opportunity. I think we were worried about this guy that winning a Grey Cup might be his last game. You had that in your career, where your last game was your first Grey Cup. What stands out about that night?
Oh, so many things. But again, at the end of the day, it's you remember the moment. You remember that your teammates. But for me, it was my family because it was my last year. I had my wife and I have been together since we were kids. She was part of the entire journey. By that point, I had 5 surgeries on my left knee. So I knew it was coming to an end, and then at that moment when you win and your family's all standing around and you're just, you realize you're not just winning for yourself, you're winning for, for all the people in your life. To me, that's the part I'll always remember. My mom and dad are gone now, and I can still, remember what it was like to be with them, when we won the Grey Cup. That's for me the part that I remember the most.
So your first year in this job, you seemed to fit. It was a nice fit, hand in glove. Was it as seamless to you as it seemed to be for us? Because you seem to take to this really nicely.
Well, it seems to me that the best way to describe it is a duck. You have to look calm on the surface, but your feet are
Absolutely.
So I had a big duck strategy going. Look, there's a lot to learn. As much as I've been blessed to have a successful career in business. But when you come into something different, there's lots to learn. And even though I come from the game, there's still a lot of parts that you have to learn. And I was sharing with Jim Pop that one of my disappointments is that because I started when the season already begun, you didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with the football guys because they're busy. Like it's literally they're going full out night and day. And so you're trying to indoctrinate yourself into the game, but I was missing a bit of a piece. And that was more of an interaction with the GMs and the coaches. And, I've tried to do a lot of that so far this offseason. We had a chance to spend a lot of time with the general managers at our league meeting in January. And that was good because you're kind of hearing a different point of view on the game. And that's been helpful to me. And I think it will help me to have, a better second season than, and as good as the first one was, I feel like stepping into the second season will be even better.
I find it interesting to say that because you came in, you talked about not getting time to spend time with the football personnel people, yet midway through your first year, you seemed comfortable enough to spearhead a campaign to a fairly significant rule change in terms of instant replay. Were you comfortable doing that? And to do it in mid-season, what kind of kickback do you get from that, or feedback do you get from that pushback?
Well, the kick word might be appropriate, but that's for another time. But we'd have to have a beer and talk about that. Look, there was. I've been a fan of the game, and I think whenever you run a business, and whether it's in the investment space where I've been for so long, or sports space, you have to listen to your customers and your fans. And the one thing that was overwhelming in those early weeks is myself as a fan, which I've now been for a long time. You know, I could tell that was broken. The games were too slow, and there's lots of research that's been done on the importance of the speed of the game. You know, you've got to keep your fans engaged, and our game was getting slow. The replay reviews were taking a lot of time. The game, it was hard to get momentum and a rhythm going in a lot of the games. So, you know, what we did is we just had a discussion. You know, it started with our rules committee. We had a conversation with the team presidents, and everyone agreed that we had a problem to solve. And I think it was a victory for common sense, the change we made. And having said that, I still think this offseason represents a time to go back and reflect on it, talk to, you know, Jim and his colleagues, get input from our coaches, and make sure that that change we made on the fly last year was the right one to be, you know, to be the go forward plan, you know, as we head towards 2018 and beyond.
You're now the 14th commissioner. I've had the opportunity to ask this question of, I think, 5 or 6, and I'm always intrigued by the answer. One of the coolest parts of your job, I imagine, is seeing your name, your autograph on the football for the first time. That's got to be a cool feeling. Do you remember where you were when you saw it for the first time?
Well, I actually slept with the football. And I think my wife said, that's just weird. I said, sweetheart, my name's on the football, get over it.
I'll ask this because I know we're going to get obviously to the question and answer a little bit later on. I'll get this one out of the way. Halifax. Most of the fans in the league would love to see a team in Halifax for the road trip as much as anything else. It's one town. It would be the even up 5-5. You know, you can do the fewer bye weeks, however you want to handle that. Where are we now in terms of Halifax? We've heard about this one ownership group. Is this the one?
Well, you know, first of all, it's a really, really good group of gentlemen. You know, Anthony LeBlanc and Gary Drummond were partners with Phoenix Coyotes. So they're, you know, they come from a sports background. They're remarkably successful. They've added Bruce Bowser. Bruce is the CEO of AMJ Campbell Van Lines, you know, incredibly successful organization in its own right. The three of them are spearheading this effort. You know, they're so easy to like when you're in a room with them. You can just feel the common sense. They're thoughtful. They're smart. They're committed to this project. So what, you know, right now what we've committed to them is that we will lean in and do everything we can to help them. You know, we have been out. John Ruddy, who is one of the owners of the Ottawa Red Blacks. John is a incredibly successful real estate developer. He and his partner Roger Greenberg and Jack Hunt, they were the ones that came up with the strategy for the redevelopment of Lansdowne Park. It was a very innovative financial structure, you know, where they put in the capital. They secured the capital by way of a promissory signature. They got the land around the stadium to develop for a commercial real estate project. It was an incredibly interesting, call it financial design, and in the end, really good for the taxpayers because taxpayers weren't out of pocket. You know, John was able to articulate to the town council that strategy. They actually had 3 town councilors in the meeting stand up and said they had always been against the idea of a stadium project and that they had changed their mind. Just listening to John, they had said they were now inclined to be on board. So the biggest hurdle will be the stadium, but there seems to be momentum. They are talking to the city, the province, and the federal government. And as I said, we're just going to lean in. They're already talking to some of our teams about the business model. We're trying to give them as much perspective on, on a financial model that they would create for the team, and we're going to work with them on that. So look, you got to be in this business. You got to be optimistic. You know, and Jim and SJ would tell you that there's no room for pessimism in this game. You have to be optimistic, but at the end of the day, you got to let this process take time. And I'm, but I can see a day when we'll be celebrating, our 10th franchise, and boy, what a day that would be.
Oh, that'd be awesome. How many in this building, whether it was for breakup or otherwise, have been to Ottawa for a game? You know what I'm talking about. That experience now. in Ottawa compared to where it was previous ownership groups, back at Lansdowne. I worked in Ottawa for 3 years, covered the Riders for 3 seasons, and it was nothing like it is now. And it's not just the football, it's a fan experience. You can go to the Lansdowne Park area, lots of restaurants, bars, there's a lineup before the game, and then you can just stagger over after the game and meet your friends afterwards.
Build it here. Kind of empty parking lot.
Well, Liberty Village isn't that far in the grand scheme of things. But when you were touring around trying to gauge fan experience and what worked and what didn't work, is there something that you would like to see implemented league-wide or by more teams around the league in terms of making these folks who spend so much money to come down and support the Toronto Argonauts in the Canadian Football League, to make that experience as best as you can?
Yeah, it's a big part of what we've been doing in terms of our business planning process. It's talking about the game experience. I had an opportunity today. I should introduce Bill Manning is here in the room with us tonight. Bill is the new president of the Toronto Argonauts. Bill, congratulations and welcome to the CFL. Here as well, and of course Michael. Michael has been a major force in the CFL as our chief operating officer for quite some time, and was the president of the Toronto Argonauts. And Mike, congratulations on all your success. And Mike is now part of the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment family. So we can only expect great things from Mike and his colleagues as well. So nice to have Mike here. One of the first things Bill and I talked about today was just the whole development of an experience in the stadium, and every stadium is going to be unique. Like this is not like a lot of other businesses. You can't just push a button and reorient your stadium. So you have to look at your facility. What features does it have to offer, and how do you take advantage of those features? I mean, BMO Field, this facility is beautiful. It's an absolutely fantastic building. There's a lot of things, a lot of potential here, but it all starts in this room, and this, somebody described, Mike, I think it was you, described this as our featured speaker. I like to think of myself tonight as our featured listener, because really what this was all about is a chance to talk to all of you and hear your thoughts on, how do we make our game bigger, stronger, and better for you? How do we create a greater engagement with you? What are some of the things that you like? I've got a bunch of questions that I want to ask you tonight, and get you to lean in with us and help us continue to evolve and improve. I mean, that's how great teams are managed. Jim doesn't have a day in his life where he thinks about the team being exactly the way it was yesterday. Today's a new day, and you have to always think about improving. That same attitude and mindset we want to bring to the CFL, and I know Bill and his colleagues and Mike are all going to lean in and think about that, for this franchise, and we're going to think about that across the league. But the fan experience, and Christina, Christina, where are you? Christina, where's she? Okay, she's you got to put that hand up more aggressively. Christina has been an amazing part of the CFL head office team. Christina is now our Chief Strategy Officer at the CFL, and one of her primary roles is going to be to help think about the future of our game and how do we drive it forward. And game experience is on her mind. So, Mike, it's everywhere. It's how do we make it fun? How do we make it fun for families? How do we make it fun for young people? How do we make it fun for the young at heart? How do we make the park a great place to come and experience the Canadian Football League in all of its glory? That's a primary goal for all of us.
Are you ready to start listening?
We are.
Okay, we have some microphones around the room. If you have a microphone, can you raise it in the air so people can find you? If you have a question for the commissioner, please find one of the people with the mics in the air so we can hear the question as well. Mike, you go. You get up.
Oh, you want? Oh, jeez. Now I gotta work too?
I've
Jeez.
never seen Frankel to tie up before, so it's a little thrown here.
Hey, can I ask you to do something for me? So at the state of the CFL at Grey Cup this year in Ottawa, recognizing that I was going to be facing the national media, I said to them that I wanted to take a selfie with them while we still liked one another, and so that was really right at the very beginning. Now I'm assuming we like each other now, and I'm going to assume they're going to really like each other by the time the evening ends. But I still believe it would be in our best interest for me to take a selfie with all of you right now. So I'm going to start with that. Hold on. Okay, there you are. Okay, how about a bit of a cheer? Hey! So, Frank.
Okay, real good one right now. We have Bill Manning here. Welcome again. I want to forget about everything that's happened in the relationship between TFC and the Argos. I want to move forward.
Yeah.
So one of the ways I think we can move forward, I love spending your money, by the way. I think it's a great idea. When you step out of the GO train, you've got a beautiful sign there that says TFC. I'd sure like to see something that represents the Argos. And my question for the commissioner, you've done a great job. And you've made it clear that no decision is final. And you talk about bringing people into the tent. Argo fans are, in my opinion, in the time that I've been involved, are maybe because we've won so many Grey Cups. I'm not saying we're jaded, but we don't pronounce our love of the team. Look, we won the Grey Cup. How many people here posted like crazy that we won the Grey Cup? Right? But we could do better. The thing of it is what can we do to help you to promote the game more than what we've done?
So Frank, that's a great question, but let me start by just responding to one of the comments you made. Bill and I were on our way over after we had a chance to visit earlier today, and one of the first things Bill said when we were driving towards BMO Field was he said, if you think of the way Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment thinks about its business, thinks about its team, reference what's happening, what's been happening at Air Canada Centre. I guess now it's Scotia Place, Scotiabank Arena, was the way they have really spread the love for all of their teams. They've really made it about all of the teams that are part of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. One of the first things Bill said is, over time, we're going to do exactly that same thing here at BMO Field. Really make this feel like truly a home for the Toronto Argonauts as it is for the TFC. And Bill, thanks for that, because I think that's exactly the kind of thing that Frank was referring to, and that was again one of the very first things that Bill said when we were driving towards is how do we really make this building feel truly like the home for the Argonauts. So that's fantastic. On the question that Frank asked, and I think it's such an important question. I'm glad you asked it. Look, I think in this new modern world we live in, we all basically have to share responsibility for how we grow this business. I think it's why we're together tonight, and I think why we will continue to have an open dialogue amongst one another, and that is how do we help grow this game that you obviously all love so much. I think in part it's what Bill said, or Frank, I should say, what Frank said. It's how do you spread the news? I think it's every person you meet. It's inviting them into this great game. It's making your friends and your neighbors and your colleagues at work feel welcome here. It's inviting somebody that's never been to a game the first time and being an ambassador for their experience. It's about saying hello to somebody sitting next to you in a seat that maybe you haven't seen before, and you just lean over and welcome them to BMO Field and welcome them to the Toronto Argonauts. Those little things, just those little things that you could do when you're in the stadium as an ambassador for this great franchise can make the difference between somebody thinking their experience was good or great. They'll go home and say, those Argos fans are the friendliest fans in the world. They just made my day. Maybe it's stopping to say hello to a family and their kids and asking them if they're having fun. It's all of those things that I think we can share. And I think we have to, if we're gonna get where we want to go, and certainly Bill's got a big vision for the Argos. I think if we're going to get there, we're going to have to lead it together. So my answer is anything you can do to help us, any relationship you can help us build, anybody you can invite into this gigantic tent called the CFL, please do it, because that can make a big difference for us.
One of the things that I noticed tonight, and I'll remember, these guys had just beaten their old team, Montreal. It was here. It was on one of those Saturday afternoon 4 o'clock games, and I left to go to Liberty Village, and it was one of the weekends of the X. I walked out, and all I saw was Argo gear. And it was so nice in this market where sometimes we don't see it. I love the amount of Argo gear I see in here tonight. That's little things, right? You wear the gear during the middle of the day on a Wednesday on a non-game week. Little stuff like that, just getting the logo in there. I should more, there are going to be the Argo Town Hall meetings specifically coming up, so if you can try and make this more of a league question for the commissioner, I'm just saying, there will be the Argo Town Halls as well coming up. You have a microphone over here? Beautiful.
Hi, thanks for doing this, first of all. One thing I find one issue with the CFL getting recognized in the communities is there's a lot of player turnover. The NHL and the NBA have rules in place where their teams can pay their pending free agents more than any other team can. What about maybe putting in a rule where if a team re-signs their own free agent, maybe 15, 20% of the contract does not count against the cap?
So, yeah, so let me say this. I've done 3 of these now. This is my 3rd one. I did Montreal, Ottawa, and now Toronto. Tomorrow I'm in Calgary. And in the first 2 evenings, player turnover surfaced in both of those meetings and now here. So now we're 3 for 3. And I do sense, and even from the anecdotal feedback I got throughout the 2017 season when I was traveling, into all the stadiums, I found that was a consistent issue. And the best way for us to tackle this is to talk to the Player Association as we head into this new collective bargaining discussion we'll have at the end of this coming season. And what I have been impressed by from the Player Association is just how much they want to be part of the solution. I really believe that. I think that the players, the SJ, and the players around this league, they want this league to be better, bigger, and stronger. We should all want that together, and I think that's an issue we need to take to the players. Are there creative ways to improve the stability of our teams? I mean, clearly having SJ coming back to this team means a lot. You can hear it in Jim's voice. I bet you if I go into the locker room right now, I could see it in SJ's amongst his teammates. Having your best players returning to your team is a critical part of building a great franchise and to attracting our fans. So I think you're onto an important subject. And the only thing I would, constantly remind myself is that we got to be respectful of the players. We have to include the players in our conversations about how we do this, so that we never create an environment where we're at odds with one another, because that's not a good way to run a business. So I think it's exactly the kind of thing that we talk to the players about, ask them for their feedback and input. We ask leaders like SJ to talk to the Player Association about it as well as part of their discussions, and see if we can't come up with the next best version of the Canadian Football League.
It's been about 20 years, and thank you for the question. It's been about 20 years since Larry Smith was the commissioner. He was a former player who became a commissioner. You were on the executive of the CFL-PA when you were a player. Do you think that will help when it comes to negotiating that CBA?
Well, I just hope so. Stephen Covey famously wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. One of his rules was first seek to understand before you seek to be understood. At the very least, what I feel strongly about is how much I love the players, how much I want to, appreciate and understand the challenges they face, and how do we help the players reach their goals. So I think if there's anything, it's maybe not so much that I was a player, but I want to understand them. I want to understand how do we help them get where they want to go. Whatever that formula is at the end of the day, our partnership with the players is really important. And thinking positively about our relationship is a really great place to start.
On the aisle, right here.
If I could make 2 points. The first point is officiating. And there has to be a consideration for irrelevant penalties that have nothing to do with the consequence of the play, but change the complexion of the game. So is there any contemplation of looking at, and I think Hamilton cheated out of a Grey Cup when Speedy B scored a touchdown, but a clipping penalty 10 yards behind him cost them the game. Is there a way to look at that and say, tack it on to the kickoff in the next play, or evaluate its relevance to the play? That's my first point. My second point is, and it's on this gentleman's point earlier, is I said to my son at the beginning of the season, when I saw James Wilder Jr. play, I said, that's the change in the Argos. That kid is going to bring success to the Argos. And then at the end of the season, to hear this guy's making $40,000 US, and the Argos are debating as to whether to sign it, it was heartbreaking. It was like, wow, this is really, and I'm a lifelong fan, this is a Bush League move to be paying. I don't understand how anybody can do the math of living in a different community, coming to a different community, and making $40,000 US. I don't know what that is Canadian, 80, 90, 200.
56.
That to me is, if that's the value of one of your premier players that brought success to the Argos and won a Grey Cup, you got to do some major self-reflection. Those are my 2 points: officiating and.
Yeah, so I'll start on the officiating question. And we, in Ottawa on Friday night, I had this very conversation with their fans. They had a wonderful group of fans out just like this one. You know, one of the things that they wanted to talk about was there potentially an adjustment to our challenge flag rule where we don't allow challenges away from the play? And my response to that, when I'm sitting, Jim's sitting right in front of me, is that's a conversation we have to have with Jim Pop and the football guys. Because, you know, I mean, again, having spent some time in the locker room and in this game, coaches would probably say that, you know, pass interference away from the ball, defensive holding away from the ball, might have been that quarterback's first read, and the reason they went over here was because they couldn't go over there. But what I heard is a real interest from our fans to maybe focus more on where the penalties have a direct impact on where the ball was. So that's an interesting question. We have to ask the football guys to weigh in on that and help us to understand that. So I think that is a...
I'll volunteer to be your remote evaluative.
Great.
Call in directly.
Yeah, so what I've learned is that, so in Montreal, for example, they were great, wonderful group of fans. They wanted their team to have extra challenges when needed during the game, and they weren't so worried about the other team. I didn't see the practical application of that particular feedback, but that's what we got.
I think most of us felt Pop did that for years in Montreal.
Yeah.
You always seem to have that advantage.
But, you know, on officiating in general, so Darren Hackwood is our new head of officiating. You know, Darren brings a lot of experience to the table. He's got a lot of new and innovative ideas. I thought I'd share with you, if you don't mind, a little bit about some of the things that Darren is thinking about. One is looking statistically at the ratings of our officials, and in a conversation with the National Football League on what they have observed is we're going to go back to a crew strategy. The NFL, through its research, has determined that crews do, in fact, do better than individual referees and officials brought together. So we are, for 2018, going to go to a crew strategy. Darren is going to do a lot of work on making sure that our crews that are getting the best evaluations are officiating more games. Another thing we're thinking of and working towards is having our on-field officials working in the command center. The feeling is these are the guys that actually, you know, they're on the field and you know, officiating our game, having them do a rotation in the command center where they have that real game feel might be good for the way our command center functions. Darren's having, you know, he's been doing a lot of work with our relationship with the NFL. We're going to do a bunch of official exchanges to continue to work on training and development. So we know this is such an important part of the game, and we want to do everything we can to do it right. But again, all you have to do is watch sports to know this is the most thankless. Like, just by a show of hands, can anyone name a more thankless job in the world than being an official in pro sports? Yeah, really. See, there you go, right? Like, so it's a tough job. We're going to work hard, and I'm excited to work with Darren on that. The second issue, I'd say this. Look, I think the Toronto Argonauts acted honorably. They were just simply following the rules, the rules that exist today.
But sorry, it's not so much an Argo issue. It's what I would say an influential premier player. Even like I think there's a great mystery in the CFL with respect to salary. And I'm a lifelong fan. I had no idea they could be that low. Like, is there no way to improve the quality of payments to the guys that are
Yeah,
risking their lives?
and again, I know what it's like to suit up in this game. It's a tough game to play. Like, I think if you ask anybody who's a general manager, they want to pay the players as much as they can. You know, we have a business model we have to follow. Obviously, we want our teams to be successful financially because that makes the business stronger. We have a plan in place to grow our revenues. That's going to allow us to do better and do better for our players. Part of the question hinges on the way we and our player association partners, the model we use for how we distribute the money amongst the players, and that's a conversation that, again, with the greatest respect to our PA partners, we have to sit down and talk about to make sure we're doing the best we can for all the players who play this great game. So, it's one of those things that, it got a lot of attention in the media. I think Toronto, the Argos, because I agree, I think this was cast as an Argonaut issue. Actually, I think it's more of a league issue, and we just have to work at it, talk to our player association partners, and see if we can do better. But we got to grow this game. We got to make this game bigger and stronger. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to do that, and when you do that, when your business is bigger and stronger, everybody wins, and that's what I want to focus on.
Can I address what he said? Because, Randy, the thing is, sir, the issue is S.J. Green was on a practice roster for 3 years? 4.5 years. Two and a half? Well, it's irrelevant. More than 2 years, right? How much do you think he got paid being on the practice roster? I'm just saying there's a system in place, and if a player wants to come to Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, anywhere else, and think they're going to run the show, they might as well leave.
Where to go, Fred? Sorry, Mr. Commissioner, being here tonight. Just an extension as to the other gentleman's point, and not about contracts, but I did a little searching on the internet today, and the internet, of course, never lies. The NFL averages 12.25 penalties a game, and this past year, the CFL was 23 penalties a game, and it was up 5 from the year before. And I have to tell you, in the Grey Cup, and those 3 big plays that the Argos made, 2 long ones, and the interception in the end zone, I was spending more time looking for a flag than I was watching the game. No, don't do this to us. But you've answered some of the questions on officiating, but do you think we're making enough of an investment in officiating? Because I look at the salaries of officials. Are we making it worthwhile?
Did you see the breakdown, how many were on special teams? Because
Well, I was thinking that it was
there's
maybe
no fair
more.
catch up here, there's no
Yeah,
touch
there's
back.
no yards,
Yeah.
and there's fewer plays in the NFL than we have. That could certainly be part of it. But for our game, it's just a game killer. When you have these terrific plays and I don't want to really go back to the winner guy, where he was trotting across the goal line, and that one was at $1 million.
What about Karen?
There's no way that affected that play at all, and I couldn't believe it. So I don't know whether, we've only got 4 games a week. I don't know whether we need more guys, we need more of a connection to the NFL officiating and working with them. We've said a few things, but can we make it more of an investment in officiating? Sorry for the long question.
No, that's okay. So look, a couple of things. One is, I'm not sure that statistic is correct. To my recollection, I think our average number of penalties is about 14 per game, not 25. And I can check that, and I'll be happy to correct myself if I was wrong. But what I did anecdotally myself last year is, as I was watching the games, I can tell you that games with 13 or fewer penalties, you can feel the game pace moves along quite a bit better. Once you get above 14 penalties, you can actually feel that there's quite a slowdown. We actually have seen a slow but steady decline in the number of penalties. I think it is a critical part. Pace of play is a critical part of making our game engaging for our fans. So we are going to look at that. I'd also tell you that I think our officials do a great job. Now let's just say, and I'll play with this. This is called the Fun with Numbers part of the program. I've seen our evaluations, and depending on how tough you think we're being on ourselves when we evaluate the officials, but our officials are correct about 97.5% of the time. But that means they're wrong 2.5% of the time. Now, I would challenge you, show me a person in any business anywhere in the world who's only wrong 2.5% of the time, and I'll show you somebody that's probably at the very top of their game. Even if I'm wrong and our guys are wrong 3.5 or 4.5% of the time, that means they're right 95.5 to 96% of the time. But even putting that aside, we got to keep working on it. I think we've got great officials who want, with great desire to officiate great games. I thought that the Grey Cup was officiated incredibly well by that crew. It's one of the reasons why Darren is thinking about how do we make sure we've got our best officials on the field all the time officiating the game. How do we develop the next generation of great officials is another important question. And investing in them, I think, is another important question you've asked. So all of those things are on the table. We just have to keep focusing on getting a little bit better all the time. And I think Darren Hackwood, who's now taken on that role, is going to help us advance towards the better officiating. But then, sorry, I'm rambling. I'll just say this: watch any sport on TV and tell me you watch the NFL and we're referencing how great they're officiating. Come on, they're being constantly criticized for their officiating. And literally, you watch any sport, watch the NBA, they are constantly being criticized for their officiating. Watch the NHL. It's just the nature of sport that we criticize officials. It seems to be the rite of passage in sport that the officials, but we're going to work on ours to make ours the best that they can be.
We'll go here, then here. Cut the back.
Hi, I'm a season ticket holder, and when I couldn't make it to the team games this season, I made sure that I gave the tickets to a couple coworkers. And well, 4 people now, they have also now season ticket holders due to the tickets that they have received from me when I couldn't make it to the games. So now they're hearing all these things going on with certain players not going to be there next season. My concern is, I remember when Ricky Williams was here, he got paid over $200,000 and he did nothing. Right? He played maybe 3-4 games, right? To my knowledge, right? And then also a couple of years after that, we had a coach who got paid over $400,000 to basically dismantle the team. So, he got rid of Arlen Bruce and a couple other guys, right? And he got paid $400,000 to do it. And my thing is that you have a guy like Wagner who played the whole season and he kicked ass for us, right? I mean, he put us on the map, right? And a lot of people started paying attention to the Argos because of him. And my concern is how is it that it reached the public that this situation happened? I thought that something would have been done so it doesn't get there where we have to hear about this unfortunate situation where not much effort was put out from the Argos to keep him as an athlete, to keep him as someone to put us at that level that we are at. Because now people are paying attention to the Argos and now we don't know what direction is going to happen this season coming up.
Well, thanks for your question, but let me say this. First of all, I think tonight there's great evidence that Jim Pop and Coach Pressman and the Toronto Argonauts are doing great things to have great players here playing for the Argos, and with Rick Ray coming back and SJ coming back, I think you're well on your way to having an amazing team. I think all this other stuff, I have a great confidence that this team is going in the right direction. I think this really wasn't a question of what they were paying the player. This was a player's desire to leave the league and go do something else. We're talking about 2 entirely different things now. The amount that player was being paid was just a frame of reference for he wanted to make a point, but the issue wasn't what he was being paid. It's that he wanted a chance to leave his contract and try to go play in the NFL. And all the Toronto Argonauts did is ask him to honor the agreement that he had signed. All the other stuff was superfluous. It was noise that was disguising the real issue, and that was the Argos just simply asked the player to honor his contract.
Hi there. So just in terms of overall reach and expansion, trying to grow the fan base across the board with the CFL, Have you guys looked into different things like showing the games online, like the NFL has started to do? Maybe have some of the playoff games during the Grey Cup on CTV versus only on TSN, so you're getting more of a national audience, or even finding a partnership with NFL Canada to see if you can get some of the games during their off season as well. But even just from a growth perspective, maybe doing some programs with junior football, maybe junior football, or maybe some flag football leagues, with a real focus on women, millennials, young adults, things like that. Just kind of branch out and grow that fan base and kind of get the younger folks as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff there, so just take a couple minutes and talk about it. So first of all, I think growing our game is absolutely one of the things we are going to be working on. We're going to work really hard with amateur football across the country because the amateur football in Canada is very strong. We'd like to see it stronger, and we'll happily work with them. We're working on this flag football initiative because it's such a great way to get girls and boys playing football together, having fun. We just saw our team from Saskatchewan compete at the Pro Bowl tournament. We had a chance to watch them. To watch these young Canadians, they were amazing. So I just had this great story. They were playing the Chinese team, and our kids were literally twice the size of most of these kids from China. And I think the game started, we had a pick six, so it's now 7-0, and then we scored on them on the first or second play, now it's 14-0. Third play of the game was a pick six, now it's 21-0. And these kids, wonderful Canadian kids, every time from that point forward that something good happened for the Chinese team, like a completed pass, these kids were high-fiving these kids from China. They were celebrating every good thing. You've never seen better sportsmanship in your life than we saw from these young Canadian kids playing flag football. And it made me proud to be Canadian, but it reminded me how great our game is, how fantastic the sport of football is, and the value of getting more kids playing the game. So we're going to work hard on that. We've got this partnership with the NFL on flag football in Canada. We're going to continue to push forward on that. And Christina and I started that conversation with the NFL. So development of the game itself is critical. Our relationship for broadcast is with TSN, Bell Media, and we are so proud of that partnership and everything that TSN and Bell Media does for us. We are constantly in a conversation with them about how we improve. They are a very forward-looking organization. They're thinking about the future of broadcast. I mean, just as much as we are in the midst of this sea change happening with social media changing and media itself changing right before our eyes, TSN and Bell Media are experiencing that in a very, very real way. And they're constantly talking to us about the things they're observing and how do we think about growing our business with them. As a partner, we couldn't be more proud to have TSN a partner if we tried. And I think that's what it's going to take, is it's going to just take us leaning in with them, talking about how we grew our game, how do we tap into new fan bases. The nice thing is when you're with a partner like TSN and Bell Media, our broadcast partners, they've got a lot of resources that they're applying to the business of understanding the changes that are happening in the media, and we expect to benefit from all that they know and that they're going to learn. So those are, that partnership is important to our future, and we're going to work hard on that. And a lot of the things you're talking about are the very things that we think about every day is, how do we grow our reach? So how do we build great content for our fans to get to know the players, to have, to experience the players in a different way, not that on the field side, but what we know is that to our millennial fans, they love, my girls they're going to cringe when they hear me say this, that I said this, but I always say, I love a good snap face. And then they cringe because there's no such thing as snap face. But I love me some good snap face. But we are constantly looking at the social media world and how do we use the social media world to promote our players, to make the fans realize these are world-class athletes. But more importantly, they're world-class people. That's the thing, pound for pound, I don't care what league you show me. There is no league in the world that the players are better people than the players we have playing in our league. than any other athletes in the world, and I think that's something so we want to tell those stories because that's a way of establishing that engagement with our fans, both those of you who are in the room tonight, but some new fans that could really come and join this great game of ours. So we're working really hard at new fan engagement strategies.
Look, while you're dealing with that, let me sort of expand on that a little bit more, because it's not only exposing, you're obviously most concerned with the CFL level. You talk about the flag football programs, touch football, punt, pass, and kick at the youth level, I think are all important. But it's also getting youth sports, like can there be a connection there? The Canadian, I don't know even how many people know this, the Canadian national U18 team, the under 18s, went down to Dallas, Texas 2 weeks ago and kicked the crap out of the Americans. And absolutely.
And they do it usually.
It used to be a regional team from South, they'd be from Florida, they'd be from Texas. They went down to Dallas, they played where the Cowboys played at this remarkable stadium. And all of the kids who played for the States are going D1. And their 19-year-olds humbled the Canadians the next night, but that's 5 times in 6 games where the Canadians have beaten the Americans in football in Texas.
Sorry, SJ.
Sorry, that's but SJ grew up in Florida, Jim grew up in North Carolina, big regional football, high school, college. Is it important for you at the Canadian football level, and how much can that help by getting other levels involved? Because I found anecdotally that the people that I know who played football, high school, youth sports, whatever, have become more likely to be CFL fans than guys and girls who grew up in a hockey club.
Yeah, no, I think, Mike, you're on to something important. From my eye, Canadian college just keeps getting better and better. And in fact, if you just look at some of the programs we have in Canada today and the quality of the athletes that we're putting, we're graduating from universities, it's as good or better than we've ever seen in our history. I think we obviously want to be working with them. I saw an announcement, I think the Raptors made a $5 million 5-year commitment to the development of basketball. You probably don't know that the Canadian Football League, in the aggregate of all of the contributions that our team makes, we donate about $3 million a year to amateur football within the Canadian Football League. And that's a story, again, kind of classically humble Canadian story that we haven't been telling that. We haven't been talking about what we're doing, to support and develop our great amateur game. But I still think that we would agree that we can do better. We can be more targeted in the development of that game. More than anything else, there is a strong connection between a fan who knows the game, plays the game, is connected with the game in some way, and being a fan of the game. So the more we can get kids playing the game, involved in the game, like our CFL Frenzy, our video game, which we launched this year, has 500,000 users. Christine, am I correct? 500,000 users? 500,000 users. There's been a number of days where we have been the #1 downloaded game on Apple, on the Apple App Store. Like, anything that we can do to get our young Canadians engaged in our game in some way, whether it's in flag or amateur football, whether it's punt, pass, and kick, whether it's just getting them out at the park throwing the football around, just playing for fun with their friends, all of those things will help to engage us. And then we're looking at other things, of course, our football frenzy and other ways to make sure Canadian kids feel a strong connection to our great league.
Once again, sorry I stole your question.
I just want to build on that gentleman's question there. The NBA was on ABC, MLB was on Fox this year, MLS was on Fox, NHL was on BBC. For Canadians, there's more and more of them every day that are cutting the cord, downgrading the basic cables, using free-to-air antennas. They could watch any major league sport final on one of those stations because you can get it with basic cable, you can get it with free-to-air, but you can't watch Canada's own Grey Cup using those mediums. TSN has done a great job for the CFL. Back when CBC had this part of the broadcast as well, Friday Night Football, TSN invented it and built it, and it's a strong cornerstone of the league. I get that. But Bell Media and CTV, TSN, they're not above criticism. Where they get a big giant fail is for the last 10 years or so, our national final game, the only major league sport in North America, has not been available to a large portion of Canadians. And I'm 44 years old. I've got friends that grew up in the blackout generation where they didn't see you play.
That was a bad idea.
If you were playing in Toronto, we didn't get that chance. They don't watch the game. Yet, so many of them say to me, if I could get it, yeah, maybe I'll throw it on. Because I go to the Grey Cup. I'm not at home throwing a party and inviting them over. And none of my other friends are. And I'm a 44-year-old. There's the millennials that basic cable, maybe they have it. And this is a problem, and maybe it's a Toronto problem and a Vancouver and Montreal problem. But those are some of your biggest cities, and quite frankly, maybe 3 of the most struggling franchises in your league. How can you go back to Bell Media and still have a TSN production on CTV, just the same way ESPN does the NBA final on ABC? It's critical, because if we wait another 10 years for the online strategy to develop, there's going to be a 20-year period of people that just, they missed the Grey Cup, they missed the fantastic game in Ottawa this year, and all the other classic Grey Cups we've had the last few years.
Well, again, all I can say thank you. And look, we obviously, and I would tell you that I'm quite sure that if our partners at TSN were in the room, they would say they want every Canadian possible to watch our great game. They really do. And that's, we really have a great partnership and relationship with TSN. And that's why we keep talking to them. So, feedback like you're giving us tonight, the conversation with TSN continues. We'll raise this issue. We constantly are talking about things. The thing I like about them, they're not afraid of tough conversations. They see themselves as a partner in promoting our great game. And I think this is an opportunity to revisit this. I don't know if I could frankly refer to some of the feedback we got from our fans on this roadshow, which is why we're doing this, so that we can think about how do we take the game to the next level. I think it's exactly the kind of thing that we'll talk to them about and see if we can't find a long-term solution. But for the record, they're amazing. They have been a great part of our league, and I knew you made that point. And I also know they want us to grow our game as well. So that's why we'll at the first opportunity we'll sit down again and talk about this type of issue with them, which is what we have been doing over these past many months since I've been involved.
Since we're talking TSN, is that Chris Schultz? Is that a Schultz jersey for that? Nice, outstanding. Where is he?
2 quick ones. One is, why don't Canadian quarterbacks count as nationals or non-imports? The second one is, every year somebody makes the ridiculous suggestion that CFL go to 1 division. And I just wanted to know if anybody at CFL head office takes that ridiculous idea.
Well, okay.
Are you undecided on that?
Yeah, so just for fun, just by a show of hands, how many in the room would like to see the CFL go to 1 division? That many. Wow. Okay.
It might change in Calgary. It might change in Calgary.
Yeah. So this is a fun. Look, I've said, right from the outset, I grew up in East versus West world. I'm a Winnipegger. We cheered on whatever team was representing the West, no matter how much we hated them. We cheered them on against those dirty dogs from the East. Because as you know, in our country, we love that. We love that East versus West rivalry. And I've said, even with that, I'm happy to listen to fans who might have a different point of view, because I think there's value in just listening to our fans and understanding it. But one of the things about the 10th team, and I think this is where there is a connection to what could happen in Halifax should this dream be realized, is that now you're talking about 2 5-team divisions. You think about the possibility of playing, say, 12 of your games in your division. So you play each of your 4 division teams 3 times. First of all, it cuts down a lot of the travel that our teams have to go to. So you would then play 6 of your games out of conference. So each team in the West once and one team twice. It would cut down on a lot of the east to west travel. I think that would be great, back and forth, west to east, east to west. So, before we do anything, I think we want to play this scenario out with what could be an amazing story with Halifax. It's kind of like the National Railway in Canada. It wasn't a thing until you laid that last mile of track and put that last spike in the ground. I think the Maritimes represents that last piece of unfinished track for the Canadian Football League, and getting a team there would truly make us bring that national dream alive. So I don't see us doing anything in the immediate term, but I sure don't mind having a conversation with our fans.
You tied the railway and the national dream together. That was awesome. That was so over here now.
Thank you. I'd like to say that I think that I think one of the solutions is very simple for our team. Every season ticket holder brought one person to the game. Our problem's solved. I mean, it's 12,000 to 24,000 increase. Now, that's not feasible, but what I have noticed in a lot of the CFL games, especially in Toronto, is that there's a substantial number of traveling fans. Whether it's the Melonheads coming in for the playoff game or whether it's people from Ottawa coming down. And I would like an opportunity to be a CFL customer rather than a Toronto Argonaut customer. And that's to say, I have the season ticket purchased here in Toronto, and I can go to Hamilton and get a discount if I walk up to the gate and go to a game. I happen to be a season subscriber in Hamilton as well. And I enjoy traveling around Southern Ontario, and I think you start mining your own backyard with some of the opportunities here. What it does is it creates the buzz, and a nearly 2/3 full stadium is more attractive than the stadium's only half full. So I understand that we all have marketing, we're trying to do our bit for each individual team, but I think if they started treating CFL fans as a customer of the CFL, happen to be a divisional, customer of the Toronto Argonauts or the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and allow someone to say, hey, let's go see a CFL game, and I'll take you to Hamilton and we'll see the Argonauts play, and I'll get a 25% discount on the seat because I am a season subscriber, and you sell my information to any of your sponsors that happen to be marketing to us. I think there's a lot more energy in creating an overall league experience. I found myself, and I've been a football fan for many, many years. I've been to over 50 Grey Cups. I become a CFL fan now. Argos are very important to me, and I enjoy it, but I enjoy the opportunity of going to an Ottawa or going to a Montreal, and I'd love to be able to take some friends and be able to do that as a preferred customer. Because I'm putting my money down every year to go to the Grey Cup, and I buy season tickets in both Toronto and Hamilton, and I buy more than I need because it's important to support teams, and it's hard to give away tickets, unfortunately, to these games. But it would be very nice to be able to say in the largesse about saying, I'd like to take somebody to a game, and because I'm a CFL client, I can go to BC or go to Hamilton or wherever I want to go and be a preferred customer because I'm a season subscriber.
Yeah.
And you just saw how many people, when we said how many have been to Ottawa, how many people put up their hands.
Yeah.
And this is a group of like
Just a quick follow-up on that. I think the league needs to monetize that in so much as it is important to be able to get a group of. The Argonauts could probably fill a couple of buses and take them down to Hamilton to see a game. And you'd be surprised how many Argonaut fans are actually at Hamilton games or at Ottawa games. And the league could take an opportunity to promote some of its players as commercial opportunities. I don't remember seeing Doug Flutie or Pinball Clements hawk any products in Canada ever. Now, if you can't sell Pinball Clements to a company that says, hi, I'm Pinball Clements and I want to buy a Ford truck, I don't know how hard that will be. SJ Green and some of the other players who are looking for a second job, maybe the league has to start looking at monetizing some of the other elements of their game. Do they have a commercial division that promotes their players to second-tier commercial sponsors? Do they have a uniform dispersal of of gear. You know, I mean, like, you know, if you try to buy Toronto Argonaut gear, that's the toughest gear in this league to buy because they're not going to need Toronto Argonaut gear. You can buy anything with Saskatchewan Rough Rider. It's a Saskatchewan Rough Rider logo, but not a lot about that. And if the league was centralizing that kind of stuff, I think there's a real energy to the number of fans in Canada that are CFL interested and would probably benefit from that.
Well, thank you for those comments. So there's a lot there. If I may, I'll just respond to a couple of things. One is, I was overwhelmed when I was in Ottawa for Grey Cup last year, how many people asked me where they could buy CFL gear. And I got that a lot, like just you know, in all the various events I went to, people wanted to buy CFL gear. So my takeaway for me was maybe we need to do more CFL gear. We actually had a conversation in the last number of days about some kind of a program where we establish like a CFL pass and you become a member and that gave you certain privileges and possibly tie you into some of our great sponsors. And that kind of idea of being able to provide you with a preferred status if you went on the road and you know were attending another stadium's games. Those are really cool ideas, and those are exactly the kinds of things that we're thinking about. How do we grow our game? How do we give our fans some value in return? You know, how do we make sure that our value proposition for all of you is as strong as possible, so that you know maybe as part of your season ticket purchase, you're also buying a league pass, some kind of loyalty program, you know, within the CFL, and then we can bestow upon you some benefits that would, you know, just, you know, perhaps, you know, look, one of our partners is the keg. Can we do something with the keg and perhaps give you preferred status when you go there? These are all great ideas that we want to talk to our sponsors about, but I love the things you shared with us, and these are exactly the kinds of things that we're talking about doing more of at the CFL. So thank you very much.
Great idea. Over here.
I want to come back to what you started with originally about the fan experience and how it affects those that pass through the stadium. Most of us are here sitting in the south end zone, and part of what we pride the south end zone on is that we can hang our banners for our team and so on. And we've had an ongoing thing with the Argos all year, but at the playoff game, we were denied allowed hanging our banners in the end zone because of sponsorship. And I understand sponsorship is a huge factor for our league and everything like that, but I guess my feedback to the league is that sponsorship should not impact how the fan experience is in terms of how we support our team. And I think the feedback would be is that if sponsorship banners are being hung, how does that impact us as fans in terms of how we support our team and the banners we want to hang up to support our groups that sit in a section together or to support our team, things like that. So I don't know if you have an answer to that, but I want the league to think about that because it's important.
So I don't have a specific answer to that, but you know, the thing I'd like to see us do is find a different way to provide you with the value you're looking for. So if we can't do what the banner, maybe there's something else we can do. And I think if we could build a culture where we're always thinking about, okay, we're going to do this, it's going to have an effect on a group, so how do we give that group something else that can make you feel good, feel proud of the team you're supporting? So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know the specific answer, but as best we can, I'd like to build a culture where we don't say no, we just say, okay, so what can we do differently then? How do we make sure that if we're going to change your fan experience, we help you to take your fan experience in a different, kind of like you close the door, we'll then open a window, you know, something that makes you feel good. And again, I'm not sure how that would look, but at the end of the day, what I know is all of our partners across the league, we want to make sure that we're giving our best fans the best experience we can. And that means we're going to have to learn from those experiences. How do we think about doing it differently going forward? And again, it's one of the reasons why we do meetings like this, so we can learn, we can hear your feedback, and then, you know, go back and ask the question, okay, so if that's a problem, how might we change that? And I think everybody in every team in the league, and certainly at the league office, that's the kind of way we want to think about our business going forward.
We're going to take two more questions, and one is here, and one is there. So those will be the last two of the end. Randy's got a flight to catch at Calgary. So Calgary.
In terms of broadcast schedule,
What's the best thing in your opinion for this league? Is it the current setup, which is a very flexible kind of staggered schedule, or do you have a vision of a more very consistent, straight schedule going forward? Just curious to your thoughts on which way to go.
It's one of the most interesting questions, and so what I was told so last year when I came into the job, one of the first things I would tell you is I was massively unhappy with the schedule that Ottawa had. So they played, Jim, correct me, 4 games in 16 days, I think is what Ottawa had. I don't think you can play 4 games in 16 days. They had 3 games in 11 days. I can tell you in the back half of my career, I just couldn't have done it. Like, it's just too much football. It's way too hard a game to play that frequently. But that was one of the problems that we had with the 20-week schedule. It forced us into some of these faster turnarounds. The 21-week schedule makes that better. What we're largely looking at is a Thursday, Friday, summertime schedule. It's not perfectly aligned that way, but we're largely talking Thursday and Friday nights. TSN will tell you Thursday nights are now their best, most watched night. So that's good. We really like that. Friday nights, like all these years that I've been away from the game, my family and I, Friday nights is you put the barbecue on, you got the game on. Like, I love nothing more than a Friday night football game. Like, that's been a big tradition. My girls grew up on Friday night football and barbecue. That's how we roll. And then I think obviously moving into the weekends in the fall when the weather gets colder. But we're constantly talking to our teams. Any feedback you can give the Argos, now MLSE, more feedback you can give them around what you're thinking, kind of when the games work best for you, the more data we have, the more we understand kind of what you all like, the better we can shape our schedule going forward. Personally, I love the Thursday, Friday during the summer schedule. I would try as best we can to make that really work. And then I'd like to move into more of a Saturday, Sunday schedule for the fall, but I don't want to do anything that our fans don't want us to do. So the best thing is for all of you to share your ideas with us and help us build the schedule around what CFL fans really want.
Final one. Mr. Ambrosie, I hate to bring it back to this, but it seems like I'm one of the few Argo fans on Mr. Pop's side and the Argo side for how they handled the Victor Butler and James Wilder issue. They signed a contract, it's a 2-year deal. That's that. My issue is a lot of teams don't want to release guys to go for an NFL tryout. This is one reason why the league got rid of the NFL window a few years back, because players found that as a way to get out of the contract. They would say, well, I want my NFL tryout, even if they knew they weren't going to make it. They come back after getting cut and all of a sudden a free agent. That's one of the issues with that NFL window. I understand why teams don't want to release these guys. Why would you want to release James Wilder to see him not make it in the NFL, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he's a free agent? He can sign with Hamilton, he can sign with whoever, and we're out of a star running back. Why can't, I know it's a collective bargaining issue, but is there any way for the league to say, okay, a team can release you for an NFL tryout, if you don't make it, if you're cut or if you're there for a year or less than a year, when you decide to come back to the CFL, the team that cuts you has a limited window exclusively to sign you to a contract. Say a couple of weeks, just like the protected list. Give the teams that cut them the chance to get that guy back instead of just losing him out as a free agent because he was cut in the NFL.
Yeah. So I actually think that's brilliant. And Jim, you're sitting right in front of me. Does that make sense to you, that scenario where if we had an NFL window, if we did, that when they exercise the window that the team holds their rights when they come back to the CFL? Is that what you would think would be an equitable outcome?
Well, that was the rule before.
Yeah.
So, the contracts have changed somewhat because the vets don't have that anymore. The first-year players in the league do have that year with that window in there. Yeah. So that's how the rule was.
But they got rid of it.
And they got rid of it. And now to get it voted back in, it's not a collective agreement issue.
Oh, okay. I thought it would.
No, it is not. And the issue is that just this past, January 9th and 11th, there was a vote, and 6 out of 9 teams voted against putting the window back in. We are a team that voted to have it. We believe in it. Okay, well, I can't answer that.
So just to clarify, Jim's right. We did have 6 teams vote against it, but I will say this. I think this is, it is actually not a collective agreement, but it's in our CBA. In order to reinstate the window, there's a notice period. So we couldn't do it this year, right? Because we have a notice period to give the players, and we would not have been able to reinstate it fairly for the teams in the league because of the notice window. I think it's exactly the kind of thing we need to go back to the table and talk to our teams about. And I think the next time we do it, we bring more facts, more evidence. So we've got our team working on some data to really understand our game a little better, kind of what's happening when somebody uses the window, how often do they come back, how long does it take for them to come back, because I think the more you bring information to these conversations, the more likely it is you get a satisfying outcome, if I could call it that. So we are going to bring this issue back to the table at some point. We're not going to do it for this year because we just simply, with the notice period, couldn't make it work. I agree. I think the Argos acted honorably within the rules. You saw last week that a team didn't follow the rules, and we took appropriate action. And now we get to go back to the table with our partners and do a revisit at an appropriate time. So if I can, Mike, could I start by wrapping up the night by thanking you for being here tonight and being a great Argo supporter. So if you would join me. I want to say, it's so exciting to be here in this beautiful, beautiful venue and have a chance to spend an evening with all of you and hear your thoughts on this great game. What's obvious to me when I've been in last year, crisscrossing the country, spent a lot of time in stadiums, and every time I met a CFL fan, how much they love it, how much they love our players, how much they appreciate this great game. When I have a chance to talk and listen to CFL fans, I just think it allows me to do my job better, and I hope this is the first of many times that we'll get a chance to visit like we were visiting tonight and talk about the CFL. There have been some amazing ideas shared in the room here tonight. I'd also tell you that one of the things about this job that I'm learning is that you have to keep listening and you have to keep an open mind. I think some of the changes some of the things we're doing, some of the decisions we're making, you have to look at it through the lens that you don't know that you've got it right. There's always tomorrow and something new to learn. There's always a new issue, and you have to be willing to entertain the possibility that you didn't get it right the first time, that maybe you have to go back and revisit it. And I think that is a critical part of being a commissioner in a great league like ours, is exposing yourself to the very real possibility that you weren't right yesterday. And how do I get it right going forward? And the only way you know that is by talking to your teams, talking to Jim and the GMs, talking to our coaches, talking to our team presidents, and ultimately talking to all of you, so that we're actively listening, so that in the end we can always take our game forward. And not perfectly, because I will guarantee there is no such thing as perfect. There's just trying really hard. Last week I was doing an interview in Montreal, and I was asked a question which I thought was fascinating to ask now, given some of the issues that we're facing in society. I was asked if I had ever thought about the possibility that we abandon having cheerleaders on our teams. And I said, quite honestly, I'd never been asked that question before. It was literally the first time that I had ever been asked. And I said, I guess that's just another thing that you put on the list of things you should think about. And then I woke up the next day and was told that the headline was Ambrosie considering getting rid of cheerleading.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
I think that the men and women who are a part of our cheer squads are great ambassadors for our games. They love the CFL, they love the teams, and they love our players. And so I think, well, okay, you gotta be careful what you say.
No kidding.
You gotta be prepared to be criticized for what you say, but mostly you gotta be willing to learn from what you said yesterday or what you say today, and tomorrow's a new day, and you face it with a smile, and you just keep learning. And all that to say, this is why these evenings are so important. I am so proud of this franchise. Obviously, the history last year was so exciting. The regular season, I think almost full stadium for the Eastern Final. That amazing game. Like, I don't know if you remember. Like, it's almost like a blur. You kind of forget how the Eastern Final ended. It was like completely wild. I was down on the field, and I thought, well, okay, this is what's going to happen, and then, well, this happened, and it was like, welcome to the CFL. 65% of our games are decided in the fourth quarter, and you go, wow, like, that's what makes our game so great. And then, like, it's like, as if that wasn't enough, then you go to the Grey Cup, and I'm standing on the sideline. You know exactly what was going to happen until it completely changed.